Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now we're taking a review of our first lecture of overview of GIT. What are the objective was in this lecture? Introduction to GIT, digestive organ, accessory digestive organ, function of GIT. Then layers of alimentary tract, their feature and function. And the third part will be regulation of alimentary tract, parasympathetic, sympathetic, and enteric nervous system. So the indigestive organ, we have 6 digestive organs: oral cavity, pharynx, nasopharynx is not part of digestive system, and esophagus, stomach, large intestine, small intestine, anus. In accessory digestive organs, we have salivary gland, 3 types of salivary gland: parotid, sublingual below the tongue, submandibular below the mandibular, and teeth, tongue. And other 3 accessory digestive organs which are present at the level of intestine are liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Digestive organs, 6 digestive organs: oral cavity, pharynx, nasopharynx is not part of digestive, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine. In accessory digestive organs, we have salivary glands, mouth, teeth, tongue. These are present in mouth, liver, gallbladder, pancreas. These are accessory. What are the function of GIT? Number 1 is motility, movement of food. Our food must be moved from mouth to anus. So it's involved process of ingestion, taking food into mouth, then mastication, chewing food, mixing with saliva, deglutition means swallowing of food, then peristalsis and segmentation. Peristalsis move the food along the long tube of our gut wall, mouth to anus. This is peristalsis. And other one is segmentation, mixing food with secretions. So this is all included motility, number 1 function. Number 2 function is secretion. It may be a exocrine secretion, it may be a endocrine secretion. Exocrine secretion is exocrine secretion have duct. Endocrine secretion is ductless. So we secrete 2 to 3 liters gastric per day. This is exocrine secretion, which include water, hydrochloric acid, bicarbonate, and everything else. In endocrine secretion, lot of endocrine secretion we will study in case of digestion process in stomach and small intestine. The next function is digestion, breakdown of large molecule into smaller one. This is digestion. Absorption, digested food, we have digested food. Now the time to absorb this food into our blood or lymph. This is absorption. Then storage and elimination. We can store temporarily, not permanently. And indigested food should be eliminated. This is another function. Immune barrier. We have immunity in our gut wall to prevent infection, process of infection. They have 3 components involved which help the immunity process. Simple columnar, tight junction, we do not allow the movement between 2 cells. So cells of immune system, these are and other immune barrier. And layers of gut wall, we have 4 layers: MS, 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 MS. Submucosa, muscularis externa, serosa. Mucosa, innermost layer is mucosa. This is your liver, this is mucosa. Behind this is submucosa. Then muscularis externa, and the outermost is serosa. In this diagram you can see this is your mucosa, which include this is your epithelium, then lamina propria and muscularis mucosa. Epithelium, lamina propria and muscularis mucosa. Then this is your submucosa, which have mesonar plexus. Mesonar or submucosal nerve plexus. What is nerve plexus? It's group of nerves and which involve in process secretion. Why? Because it is submucosa is closer to mucosa. So in this way they control the process of secretion, exocrine as well as endocrine secretion. Triple, you can remember by mnemonic triple S, in which submucosa have submucosal plaques. They they have sensory innervation. They secrete. They involved in the process of secretion, controlled process of secretion. Then muscularis externa, which have two layers. Inner one is circular and outer is longitudinal. Between these two layers, we found another plex, nerve plex. We call them myenteric nerve plex or orbic nerve plex, which control the motility. Muscularis externa, motility. Muscularis externa, motility. And the outermost is serosa, interperitoneal, and for interperitoneal it is serosa, for retroperitoneal it is adventitia. Intraperitoneal means the organs which are covered by visceral peritoneum or peritoneum, and the organ which is not covered by peritoneum or retroperitoneal. For example, kidney, descendiculum, ascendiculum, all these are retroperitoneal. So in this diagram you can see that submucosal plex and myenteric plex, these two types of plex, they are forming ENS, enteric nervous system, which is controlled by autonomic nervous system. And we can see this is your mucosa, which include epithelial, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosa. This is mucosa. These epithelial, lamina propria, muscularis mucosa are their components, are their sublayers. And then we have submucosa. Then we have circular and circular muscle and longitudinal. Circular muscle function is to mix food. Longitudinal muscle involved in process peristaltic, move food along the pathway of gut wall. And outermost is serosa. Epithelial layer. We have two types of epithelial layer: stratified squamous and simple columnar. Stratified squamous is present up to level of esophagus and last part of our gut in rectum. Our mouth, surface of tongue, surface of pharynx. They have stratified squamous, while simple columnar is present in case of stomach, small intestine, large intestine. So digestive epithelium is also called simple columnar because the major organ like stomach, small intestine, and large intestine have simple columnar. Then lamina propria, which is connective tissue, which include fibroblast, macrophages, lymphocyte, eosinophils. Muscularis mucosa. Muscle, we have basically three types of muscle: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle. Only skeletal muscle is in our control. Smooth muscles, cardiac muscle, they are not in our control. So muscular mucosa, it is smooth muscle fiber, but it is absent in case of mouth and pharynx. It starts from esophagus. Some mucosa is also absent in case of mouth and pharynx. Alright. It is also loose connective tissue, which include collagen, elastic fiber, reticular fibers, and few cells of connective tissue. The main concept is they have blood vessel, lymphatic vessel, nerve plex. Lymphatic, for example, you may have here the term the lacteals. What is function of lacteal? They absorb the chylomicrons. When they are broken down into simpler form, they are absorbed by lacteal. These are lymphatics. Nerve plexus, submucosal nerve plexus is present in case of submucosal layer. Then muscular layer, we have two types: inner circular and outer longitudinal. It may be a skeletal, it may be a smooth. If it's a smooth, it is involuntary. If it is a skeletal, it will be in our control. In case of lips, cheeks, and wall of pharynx, we have skeletal muscle. So we have control to break down our food or not In esophagus, we have both type of skeleton and smooth muscle because we divide our esophagus in three parts. Upper one has skeletal and the lower one has smooth, and the medial part have both skeleton and smooth muscle that is mixed. And wall of stomach and intestine is formed by smooth muscle fiber, so they are voluntary. Which organs, which organ of gut wall have more muscle? Is stomach because it is an extra inner oblique layers, inner oblique layer which is muscle, and extra it has three layers of muscle. In case of intestine, we have same two types of two layers, circular and outer longitudinal. Optic nerve plexus control the circular and nerve longitudinal because it is present between these two muscles. In case of anal, we have internal anal sphincter and external anal sphincter. Internal anal sphincter is smooth in nature, smooth muscle in nature, while external anal sphincter is skeletal. So it is in our control when we want to excrete, when we want not. So the outermost is serous and fibrous layer. The outermost serous and fibrous layer that is connective tissue or mesoepithelial. It is composed of connective tissue and mesoepithelial. It covers stomach, small and large intestine. What is fibrous? We have studied adventitia. Adventitia is seriously related to abdomen, but when we are not concerned with abdomen, for example, in case of thorax region or mouth, it is fibrosa. Fibrosa. What you want to pronounce? It contains connective tissue. It's only contains connective tissue. It's cover pharynx and esophagus. So nerve supply, last topic. Nerve supply. Nerve supply, we have two types: intrinsic nerve supply and extrinsic nerve. Intrinsic includes submucosal plex and orbic plex, while extrinsic include autonomic nervous system, which may be a sympathetic or parasympathetic, or represent rest mnemonic for remembering which one is in case of rest, which one is in case of fight and flight. Fight and flight is related to sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic is related to your rest condition, normal condition. So, autonomic pathway, two types of neuron. One is before the ganglia and other is after the ganglia. The before is preganglionic neuron, the after is postganglionic. What is ganglia? Collection of cell body. Neurons are three components: axon, dendrites, and cell body. The group of cell bodies is called ganglia. The neuron which is before the ganglia is preganglionic, which is after the ganglia is postganglionic, which this show the neurotransmitter. The nature of neurotransmitter define the regulation. So in case of parasympathetic and sympathetic, it's a differentiation table. You must remember that in case of sympathetic, in case of fight and flight, the only system which is inhibited is GIT, digestive system. Why? Because when I want to run away from dog, I want to blood flow in muscle should be more and more, so I can get energy from blood, and it become easier for me. So if someone have blood flow in their gut wall more, in case of sympathetic, it should be a good meal for their dog because their muscles have not enough blood flow. So gut digestive system is inhibited in case of sympathetic. Parasympathetic is normal condition, it is rest, so it's stimulated. Sympathetic. The nature of neurotransmitter define the function. neurotransmitter norepinephrine or ATP, they control the function. They decrease the motility, secretion, and constriction of sphincter. Constriction of sphincter means we are not allowing peristalsis movement. So, in this way, if their constricted path is closed, so in this way, peristalsis stops down and motility, secretions decrease in case of sympathetic motility, which include peristalsis, ingestion, mastication, deglutition, everything else. Norepinephrine, ATP, this type of neurotransmitter slow down, sympathetic slow down the function. Parasympathetic, via vagus nerve, acetylcholine. Vagus nerve or acetylcholine are interchangeably used. So don't confuse, because vagus nerve secrete the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, which increase the motility, increase the secretions, and increase digestion level. So the function of acetylcholine is to constrict the muscle to make them secrete, constrict the muscle to make them secrete. But is constriction of sphincter is decreased, mean they are dilated. How they are dilated? The VIP, vasoactive intestinal peptide. They secrete, they liberate nitric oxide, which dilate the sphincter, and other gastrin releasing peptide, which stimulate G cell to secrete gastrin, which secrete HCl, hydrochloric acid, which digest the food. Vasoactive intestinal peptide released from enteric neurons. GRP, gastrin releasing peptide, stimulates the release of gastrin from G cells. Another important information is vagus nerve innervate our upper GIT and lower GIT except the lower large intestinal part, which is innervated by spinal nerve or sacral, which is came from sacral region. You can see in this diagram. Vagus nerve innervating stomach, esophagus, small intestine, cecum, ascending colon, proximal 2/3 of transverse colon, while distal 1/3 of transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, pelvic, and rectum of anus. They are innervated by sacral region, S2, S3, S4. They are spinal nerve. What is difference between spinal and cranial nerve? Spinal nerves came from spinal cord. Cranial nerves came from brain directly. Vagus nerve is cranial nerve, while these are pelvic nerves, which are came from sacral region. So in case of sympathetic, you will find greater subthalamic nerve, which came from T8 to T12 thoracic region. They rely on celiac ganglia, superior mesenteric ganglia, inferior mesenteric. These are ganglia which are present in gut wall. You have or you will study these ganglia in embryology or anatomy. Supply esophagus, stomach, intestine, cecum, ascending colon, everything else is innervated by sympathetic. So their function, what is important to remember, that sympathetic slow down, decrease motility, decrease secretion, constrict the sphincter to stop the peristalsis. In parasympathetic, increase motility, increase sphincter, increase secretion, dilation of sphincter, and gastrin increases. And enteric nervous system, orbic nerve plex, which is menteric nerve plex. It has two layers, inner circular and outer longitudinal. Between these, menteric nerve plex present, inner circular, outer longitudinal. Function of orbics, of course, orbic plex, motility, muscle motility, regulate the movement of GIT. Important thing here is the nature of neurotransmitter. If may excite, if may inhibit. The neurotransmitter which involved in the process of excitation are acetylcholine, serotonin, substance P. Acetylcholine subtopic is important. Inhibitory neurotransmitter are VAP, vasoactive intestinal polypeptide, neurotensin, and enkephalin. Major nerve plexus. What is function of major nerve plexus? First of all, they are submucosal as they control the process of secretion. So they are present between the circular and submucosal layer. Regulation of secretory functions of GIT and nerve fiber cause the constriction of blood vessels of GIT. So extrinsic nervous system, intrinsic nervous system. Extrinsic, which is controlled by parasympathetic and sympathetic. They are magnetic nerve plex, which control the circular and longitudinal muscle. While in case of submucosa, which control the mucus, because the mucus layer is the most absorptive, most secretive, and innermost layer. Most absorptive, most secretive layer. So they are controlled by submucosal plex. Their secretion is controlled by submucosal plex. Intrinsic nervous system, they are in they may be controlled by extrinsic nervous system, which is parasympathetic and sympathetic. But if we cut the supply of parasympathetic or sympathetic, or other words autonomic nervous system, they have ability to control whole system, because it's mini brain. Entire nervous system is mini brain. It's the number of neurons and nerves are more than brain. Oh, that is very important. No, I think that's a very good review. Mucosa